welcome to the meeting of the Waynesburg Area School District Board of Directors for July 14, 2020. Thanks everybody for coming out. We're going to leave it else on the agenda. I'm going to start with the pledge, so if everybody can please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a lot to talk about tonight. I know that everybody's very interested in our plan for reopening, but before we get into the items that you see on the agenda, we would like to acknowledge and send our deepest condolences out to the family of our young man who passed away this week, or last week, I'm sorry. So in honor of Jonathan, if everyone would please just take a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Okay, starting off today, we're going to look at the agenda. I don't believe there's any changes, are there, Dr. Klein? No. Okay, so look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yeah, you know we didn't do, we don't have our attendance, so we skip that. So let's, do you have that? I'm sorry? Yeah, I think we should, just to acknowledge who's here and who's not, especially.
Ms. Reaper? Here. Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Bakefield? Here. Mrs. Strike? Here. Dr. Royer? Here. Mr. Wenger?
Here.
Mrs. Zimmerman?
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan is not here. And Mrs. Earl?
Here, thank you. Okay, so we have approved the agenda then. Moving on to the minutes. Did anyone have any issues with anything in the minutes from our last meeting? If not, can we please have a motion to approve the minutes?
So, second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Dr. Klein?
Basically, my report will be the reopening plan, and I will, even during that, I'll discuss the process of that.
Okay. Next item then is public comment. If anyone would like to speak tonight, we ask you to give your name, your address, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Anyone who would like to speak, we're going to use this mic right here. Come on down and let us hear what you have to say.
Just down so you can hear me.
You can.
Okay. So my name is Melissa Burkholder. I live at 11491 Lady Dale Drive. I am actually here today to represent my, not approval, but I am very thankful for the reopening plan that I have seen presented on the website that was just posted today. I am grateful that there are options if families are uncomfortable with students returning to the buildings. There are options for them to take. And I also just wanted to, we're inundated with fear from the media that we are constantly seeing the outliers, the 30-year-old that died, the 20-year-old whatever that is in the hospital. But for the majority, that is not the case. We know that most people, if you get this, you're going to recover unless you are 65 or older. Now, I realize we certainly have those numbers in our buildings, and I, by no means, would wish anything to happen to anyone in those age ranges. However, I've been keeping a spreadsheet with the numbers since the start of all this stuff. As of today, we've had 76 confirmed cases of COVID in all of Franklin County. That has only increased by 20 since May 28th. There have been no deaths in 17268, and I apologize, my number was for the 17268 zip code, not Franklin County. As of right now, in Franklin County, only 0.5% of ER visits are for COVID or COVID-like symptoms, 0.5%. There have been 46 deaths in all of Franklin County since this has started. Now, again, I don't want to seem callous. All death is horrible, but we are all headed there. We can't stop it. There has been a 55% increase in suicide and addiction since this has started. 55% since the beginning of the year. I'm in favor of reopening, not without precautions, of course. I certainly want to see everybody safe, but we have to look at the big picture and stop the fear-mongering. We've got to get over that. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak tonight? Okay, if not, then, I'm sorry, okay.
Hello.
Hello. My name is Emily Baker. I live at 179 Briar Ridge Drive. So I heard what Melissa had to say. And while I understand that we have to, there is a lot of fear going on out there, and there are percentages that are low. But when it comes to our kids, we have to take even more precaution. We have been put in situations where we stopped school, we didn't have it towards the end of the year, and now they haven't been back into major crowd settings yet. I have a child who has an immune compromised system, but I also have to take into consideration her mental health, so I do understand that. I did not hear the entire proposal for the board, but I've heard bits and pieces, and from what I've heard, I don't think that there's enough in place to keep our kids safe, to keep our teachers safe from this terrible impending disease. I have had people that I know get this and suffer greatly, and I've even had people that I know die from it. And so when it comes to our kids, I don't want to take those type of chances. So you can throw all the numbers out that you want to me, but when you're putting all of these kids in these classrooms, what's going to happen when you have a teacher test positive is right now, I'm the director of a parent-child education center. So we have, only 2 families in the building at one time. We do not have families across each other. We have to take extra precaution when it comes to that and limit ourselves. And right now, from what I've heard, we're just putting kids right back in the classroom with just masks. Well, I can tell you right now, I work with, the kids that come to my center, 2 and up have to wear masks, and it is difficult. Those kids are touching their faces, they're pulling the masks off, they can't hardly breathe. I have kids with sensory issues, adults with sensory issues, and so, all of those circumstances combined, you're not going to be able to get a mask on somebody and keep them on them for 6 to 7 to 8 hours a day. So, while I don't want to shut us in, I want a safe plan that's going to be able to allow my child and other children be able to safely social distance, which is very difficult with teenagers, I understand, and with little kids. And you have one teacher wrangling 20-some children to try to keep them social distance. That is very difficult then to give them an educational component that they need. So I really feel as though we need to come up with a plan that meets halfway for families to make sure that our kids and our teachers and our staff is safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christy Rubeck. My address is 318 Clyde Street. First of all, I just want to say as a fellow educator, I work in Washington County Public Schools. Thank you all so much for the hard work that I know you've put into this. I'm on one of the reopening committees in my county. I know how tiresome and how constricting and everything this is. And while I know Franklin County is in a better place, we're also in an area where we border a lot of other areas. There's a lot of cross-contamination from our areas. So I just really think we need to be aware of what some of the other school systems around us are doing and look at their plans as well, because as I perused your guys' plan today, the plan for reopening, I do, like the lady before me said, have some concerns. It says masks were encouraged but not required, whereas the PA State Department says they're required. So there's some conflict there, and I know from volunteering in my daughter's school how hard it is going to be to fit a class of 25 to 30 kids 6 feet apart. I know I couldn't do it in my personal classroom. I've taught kindergarten for 7 years. I know how difficult it is. So I do have some concerns with the plans. And I think right now we're in a good place where we're lucky that our kids have not gotten sick. But as a country, our kids have not gotten sick because we have kept them away from the germs. And no, I don't want to do virtual learning any more than the next person. It was not fun. It was not what school should be. It's not why I signed up to be a teacher. It's not what our kids should be experiencing. But this is not a normal time we're living in. And so I think we really need to think about that and consider what we're going to do. Chambersburg changed their plan today from being elementary and middle school in school 5 days a week to go into an AA-BB rotation. And believe me, I was on the plan committee that tried to do that. I know what a nightmare that is logistically. Washington County literally just voted about 20 minutes ago to go virtual until it's safe, was the exact wording of Washington County's Board of Education. Frederick County, Montgomery County, they're all looking virtual. And like I said, that's no one's goal. That's not where we want to be. But it might be where we need to be in order to keep our children and our staff and the families that are caring for them. Yes, our kids aren't 65, but they might be living with a grandparent who is. So we really need to think of everything there. And like I said, I appreciate so much the time and thought you've put into it, but I do think there needs to be more consideration as to what is the safest. And also, just on a personal note, we keep saying online that virtual school will be an option, but there hasn't been a lot of information about that. So I personally would like to see more information put out about that so we can make an informed decision as to where we want to send our children if we don't feel safe sending them back to the building. Thank you.
Thank you. You will be saying more about that.
Good evening. My name is David Rose. I live at 6074 Iron Bridge Road in Waynesboro. My concern is I am the bus driver that's going to take these children back and forth to school. With 72 plus students on that school bus, how am I supposed to keep safe distance? Pennsylvania has ordered that everyone wears a mask. If I pick up students and they don't have a mask, I leave them sitting on the street corner and say, you cannot get on the bus. If I have children get on the bus after school, where's your mask? Oh, I left it in school. You have to walk home or find another way to get there. So these are concerns that I have from a personal standpoint. I am one of the 65 and older. And as far as I have not seen the plan, so I don't know exactly what, I tried to look all day and I just didn't get it. So I don't know what the full plan is, but I'm just saying from a bus driver standpoint, it's a nightmare. I know when I read Chambersburg, they went to 50% capacity on the school buses. I don't have the answers. I wish I did, but I do have the concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicole Sanders. I live at 108 Northeast Avenue. My son Dominic recently went from 5th grade going into the middle school this year. And I can tell you, I did not like the virtual learning. My son did not like the virtual learning at all. He did it because he knew he wanted to pass the 5th grade. If you're going to do virtual learning, I would prefer if my son was either on a Zoom meeting or Microsoft Word meeting or something with his teacher in order to ask questions instead of waiting for emails. He wants to go back to school, and if you guys decide to do this, the bus driver was right. You cannot have 75 kids on a bus and have to abide by 6 feet. I work in the healthcare setting for a living. I have dealt with COVID patients. I have seen people pass away. I don't want my kid to be any more exposed than 65 and older. Florida State had an 11-year-old just pass away. I'm okay with virtual learning if it is better than what it was last minute. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Again, Dr. Klein will be discussing some of the options that you were addressing when he gives the overview. Would anyone else like to speak tonight on anything?
My name is Rebecca Vaughn. I live at 32 Tridal Avenue in Waynesboro. And I agree with a lot of people here that I am very thankful that there are options. And I did note that in your plan that it said that while the mask would be encouraged, that they weren't mandatory. However, it did say that if the PDE required it, that it would be required. So I assume that that means that it's now required because the Pennsylvania Department of Education has made it required. So that should be a moot point at this point. However, my concern is that, similar to the last person who spoke, I recognize that it was last minute, and I know our teachers really went to, they really had to devote themselves, and it was a last minute endeavor to try to pull this together to teach our students virtually with probably very little training and preparation. And I appreciate all that they did. But I am very concerned that, at least at the high school level, my son did not get really any instruction. He was getting PowerPoints and fill the blanks and read these assignments and then write a paragraph or create a poster and then get graded on it. And that really isn't teaching. And if that's the way his instruction is going to be for the foreseeable future, then maybe I need to go to cyber school, because I know that when he was in cyber school in elementary school, they actually do virtual instruction where he has an actual classroom with instruction and he can be taught, virtually, like where he's having interaction, not just with the teacher, but with the other students as well. And I prefer that it be in person, preferably safely. And I recognize that statistically he's not at that much risk. So I would prefer for him to be here with his friends. He's a high schooler. He wants to be here with his friends. And there's risk for everything that we do. So we need to keep that in mind, that every single thing that we do, we are assuming risk. More people are dying in car crashes than of this, as far as like our children's age group. But we need to recognize that our students are losing these years of education, whether that's 5th grade or whether that's 10th grade. They're not getting this time back. And we need to make sure that they're getting a proper education and they're not losing that. I was a teacher for 5 years. When I went to college to become a teacher, I knew that I was going to be exposed to whatever those kids brought in during that time. Whether I was 20 years old and right out of college or whether I was 50 and going to be retiring. I still work in the homeschooling community with my younger kids, and so I'm still so exposed to things with around kids. This is part of the job. And, it is an unfortunate reality that it's an essential job. It's something that people need, whether that's because their children need an education or whether that's because they need to be able to go to work. It's both. And it's an unfortunate reality, and it's a real reality. We need our kids in school for many reasons, but that's the truth. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Robin Advisor. I live at 11656 Ironwood Drive, and I have 5 grandchildren in this school system, in Waynesboro School District and 1 in Washington County, Maryland. And I am just so concerned about the educational drain that is taking place across the board. And I will agree with other speakers, although some teachers did a great job getting information out there. It's almost impossible to teach language, a secondary language, with a worksheet. You can't learn French, German, whatever you're taking from a worksheet. I'm concerned about the kids who are now in situations that may not be favorable at home. Teachers and educators are the first-line reporters for child abuse and neglect, and how many kids have fallen through that crack that weren't available for teachers to notice, for them to be reported. That's something that we can't overlook. It's important. What if you were the child in that abusive home, and you are now locked in that home for 4 months with no outlet? I understand that may not be the primary goal of the school system, but it's significant to that child. Also, we have very volatile homes right now. We have parents losing jobs, losing income, and add that added pressure to a parent with children at home that are leaking educational opportunities. I really appreciate the fact that you want to get the kids back in school. Every one of my grandchildren want to come back to the classroom. They're social beings. They want to be with their friends. They understand that they can't be shoulder to shoulder. Although when I go to the swimming pool, that's exactly what I see. So they're having contact outside the school system. It's not like this is going to be their only exposure. I have a grandson that's going into the 11th grade. If he has an educational drain at this point, how is he going to be prepared for college? What are they going to lose? I know a lot of numbers are dancing around, and a lot of numbers are accurate, a lot of numbers aren't. One death is too many, but this same breath, dying of COVID-19 is very different than dying with COVID-19. If I have a heart attack tomorrow and I happen to have COVID-19, COVID-19 goes on the paperwork. So I don't know that all those numbers are terribly realistic when we're basing the kids' education. This is important. It's a big deal. That's why every one of you got into this business, because you believe that education was important, and I don't want to see these kids fall through the cracks. I appreciate you taking the opportunity to hear what I have to say.
Thank you.
My name is Emma Coulter. I live at 12376 Millwood Circle, and I'm a student here at Washington. Well, I will be in the fall. I'm a freshman. And I'm kind of nervous with the plan right now. I have 2 grandparents who are 90 years old who both have CPD, as well as multiple family members who have autoimmune diseases. And I'm really nervous that if I were to come back to school, I could pass something to them. I don't want to be responsible for giving anyone COVID-19 or even killing them. It was kind of hard at the end of the school year with the virtual learning, especially since we couldn't see anyone. I have friends in Washington County where they had scheduled Zoom classes every day. I think it might be a viable option to go virtual, but I think that they should definitely revamp how they're doing it. I think that we should have some sort of platform where we can actually see our teachers and they can teach us. It makes me nervous. I don't want to hurt anyone just by going to school. But I think if we could revamp the virtual system, we could still get that same learning experience by being able to see our teachers and friends. I also recently attended a virtual environmental camp. They had to move it all online, so we were in a Zoom meeting for about 7 hours a day, learning about many different kinds of environmental science. And I actually think it worked really well, and I was able to learn a lot of new skills through that experience. We were working in groups a lot, and at first it was kind of hard to communicate, but over time we realized how to work together, and I think it has really helped me and given me a lot of new skills. So the new plan that we have right now, it just makes me a little bit nervous, and I think that virtual learning is a viable option. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm a student of Walsh's. I'm the same as Rebecca
Could you say your name and address, please?
I am Daniel Swonger. I have the same address as Rebecca Vaughn,
Okay.
Tridal Avenue. I didn't really read up on this, but how would 6 feet of air keep germs out? Like, I understand that it's an epidemic, but I had it before anybody else did, like the first week. It's like a bad flu. It stayed with me for like 3 weeks. And I stayed home for 3 weeks. I know some people get it worse than others, but I'm just saying, like, yes, be careful, but don't go like crazy. Like, don't like put like riot shields up, like, because it's a germ. It's gonna find a way. But yes, we can still do stuff to prevent that. But like, you're not gonna get it all the way out of the air. Like, if you're gonna get it, you're gonna get it. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, if not, then we are ready to move on to the other items on our agenda today. First one is board reports. Does anybody have did they have any meetings or any reports from any of our committees? Anything coming up this week?
Council Police meeting meets on Monday, 6:30 at Clinton Avenue.
Anything else? If not, we'll move on then to the PFF presentation. Okay. Dr. Klein is reminding me that we had a lot of people who asked about why we weren't live streaming anymore. And at this point, we knew we had a lot of people, so we moved over here, and the live stream is available over here at this point. But we are looking to that in the future, so we are hoping, maybe not next Monday, because we're moving our board report to next Monday, but by August, we don't have a meeting on the 28th because of graduation, so by August, we're hoping that we will have live streaming as we did when we were unable to meet together. So to answer that question, we're working on it, and we hope to have it ready by then, if anyone was wondering about that. Okay.
Hello, Jamie speaking.
Hi, Jamie, this is Nick, and I have the board here and all the public. I'm going to bring Tom online here for you.
Great, thank you.
Hello, this is Tom Lynch. Hi, Tom. This is Nick Erickson, Waynesboro School District. I believe Jamie's on the line also for the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, good to go.
I think we'll let Jim lead off.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for letting us participate via telephone this evening. You should each have a copy of my final report regarding the refunding opportunity that we discussed back in May. And we had excellent results. If you look at page 1 of my handout, particularly the lower right-hand corner, see that we're basically back down to the all-time low interest rate levels that were previously set in March of this year. So that was all good news for the refunding opportunity. On page 2, you'll see your 2012 B bond. If you do nothing, you keep making the payments on page 2. On page 3, you'll see the portion of your 2012 B bond that will refund with this opportunity for savings. The reason we're not refunding all of the 2012 B bonds is because we want to keep the size of the refunding under $10 million to get you the lowest possible interest rate, bank qualified. If you look at page 4, there's the portion of your 2012 B bonds that will remain outstanding after the refunding, and you'll continue to make the payments on page 4. On page 5, you'll see your 2015 bonds, so if you did nothing, you keep making the payments on page 5. Page 6 is the portion of your 2015 bonds that will refund with this transaction. Again, we're not quite refunding all of them. We're refunding the ones with the highest interest rate to generate the maximum amount of savings. And page 7 is the small portion of your 2015 bonds that will remain after the refunding. So you have a couple payments left on 2015. Page 8 just shows how much money we need to pay off the refunded portions of both bond issue, principal, and interest. And finally, page 9, this is the most important page in here. We utilized the dual track process, and we got an excellent bank loan proposal from Mr. Bank. They proposed a fixed rate in column 3 for the entire term at a 2.078%. And that's a lot better than we were anticipating. That generates net savings to the school district in column 10 of $288,018.33. If you start at the top of column 10 and work your way down, you'll see that you recognize the bulk of that in the current fiscal year, about $253,000, and then give or take a few hundred to a few $1,000s. With the exception of, if you look out in fiscal year ending 2030, you'll see there's about $24,500 of savings in that year. And we were just smoothing down the debt portfolio a little bit is the reason we put some savings out in that year. That bottom box on page 9, you can see the state share is already netted out of these savings. The state, unfortunately, gets the same share of your savings as they pay on your debt service, so the state will benefit by almost $127,000. Again, that's already netted out of your number. And if you recall, when we started talking about this back in March, we set a minimum acceptable savings target of $50,000. And that presentation, I was showing you net savings of about $80,000. So, we did about $208,000 better than what I was showing you back in May. Excellent bank proposal from Registrars. On page 10, you'll see the sources and uses of funds, and that box labeled yield of the issue. I'll draw your attention to that. That's the rate we'll report to the IRS, so you effectively be refinancing this portion of your debt portfolio at that 2.078%. And settlement, should you accept this Register Bank proposal, would be August 18th. Page 11 is just your updated debt portfolio. So now those refunded portions of the 2012 B bonds and the 2015 bonds are gone from columns 2 and 3, and we've added column 9 to reflect the series of 2020. Page 12 just shows you the 2 bank loan proposals that we received. Pretty significant difference between the Webster proposal and the runner-up, if you will. The Webster proposal contained a bank fee of $4,000, which was incorporated into that sources and uses page we just looked at 2 pages ago. And it is prepayable as as of November 15 of 2025. So that's pretty much the equivalent of a 5-year call that you would have got on a bond issue if the bond issue had made more sense, and it did not. Webster Bank proposal beat the bond issue. The rest of the pages are summary of the term sheet and the proposal that Webster submitted, and I'll let you peruse that at your leisure. But I'm happy to answer any questions at this time. I would like to publicly thank Eric for all his help in the process and answering questions along the way that some of the banks had. I was very pleased with the process, and I'm very pleased with the end result that I'm able to present to you this evening. So I'll entertain any questions that you have before I turn it over to Tom Lynch to go over the resolution.
Well, that's fantastic. We thought 8,000 would be good. 288,000 is wonderful. Does anybody have any questions for Jamie? Nobody? Okay, then, we're ready to move on.
Okay, this is Tom Lynch, the bond counsel. I'm going to be very quick, give you a summary of the resolution. The resolution before you, one, accepts the purchase proposal from the bank. Next, it provides for refunding a portion of the Series 2015 bonds and a portion of the 2012 B bond, as Jamie mentioned. Furthermore, the school district designates the notes as tax-free to the purchaser, Webster Bank, and accordingly, the debt service schedule is set forth as an attachment, Schedule A, and is hereby approved by the board. You will see the form of the note is set forth as an attachment, and it pledges the full faith, credit, and taxing power of the district. And finally, the resolution authorizes the appropriate officers to execute and deliver the note itself. I've only gone over the highlights, but as you know, this is a debt ordinance, and so you would need to take this up by a roll call vote. And that's the end of my summary. I'll entertain any questions.
Anybody? So we're ready to vote? Okay. So we need a motion on this to accept this, correct? So do we
A
have
motion to roll call vote.
And that's item D3 on the agenda, just as a reference. So if you have any questions, just to be your comments. But everything Mr. Lynch just stated was there.
Okay, speak really clearly in your mic.
Everything that Mr. Lynch just referred to is under D3 on your agenda.
Okay.
The three attachments. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So we're not going to vote until we get down to there? Are you saying that?
Well, it's really your choice.
That's good now.
Sometimes
That's
when
good
there's
now.
questions, it's good to have.
Yeah. Okay, so we're having a roll call, but we still need the motion to accept the refinancing. So do we have anyone who's willing to make that? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Drake. Do we have a second? Second, Mrs. Baker, thank you. All those in favor of accepting this? Oh, that's right. Roll call, Ms. Kuzer, to accept this resolution.
Mrs. Weaver? Yes. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Basil? Yes. Mrs. Strike? Yes. Dr. Roy? Yes. Mr. Wenger?
Yes.
Mrs. Zimmerman?
Mrs. Zimmerman? Oh, she's not connected, okay?
Mrs. Harrell?
Yes. Okay, so that passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Lynch and Jamie, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Hello?
Hi, Linda. It's Nick and the whole board. You're connected again.
Okay, so we're ready
Thank you so much.
we're ready to move on, Linda, to the business items. And the first one is the remote learning resolution, Dr. Klein.
All right, and if it's okay, we set ourselves up for 16 in between so we can be heard clearly with, talking about the plan and also with this resolution what this remote learning resolution will do, it will provide the district some flexibility with how we teach online and in person. It will allow us to create some options as far as our calendar, which I know Dr. Sternerheim will be talking about at another point about that we are looking at some options to address our calendar. We would do some more online learning opportunities, and the law provides that we have 990 hours of instruction for high school or secondary and 900 hours for elementary. The other thing that it provides is that we have 180 days of instruction. And this gives us a little flexibility on how we achieve that. So that's why it is there, so we can move forward with other things that we may be offering this year.
Okay, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to take a look at the resolution. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
Move to approve.
Second.
Does anybody have any questions or anything for Dr. Klein or anyone else? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. And now on to the health and safety plan.
Okay. What I'm going to do, I know this has been out, we put it out there today when we opened up the board agenda. And I'm going to highlight many of the things that we know have come about. I want to first kind of go over the process and how we got here. This was a process we took very seriously. As you know, the administration met with the board at one time fell under the Sunshine Act, under safety and security, and we were able to get your feelings about things and look at some of the issues. So I want to make sure it's clear that this has been very open. The part of the process here has been, one of the issues has been time and also change. As you know, some of the things that when we actually presented this, gave this plan to the board the first time, the next day we had to change it. The governor made a mandatory mask, and so did the Department of Ed, so it changed things for us. So we had to make a change in the plan, and we reworded that at that point. And that has been during the whole process. And one of the things that we are trying to achieve is try to do the best we can to keep our kids safe. That's number one. And I know one of the speakers said something that is always on our minds is that one child who gets sick and succumb to this disease is too many. So all those things have been on our minds, and I don't want anyone to think that wasn't taken seriously. And the other part, aside from the safety would have been first, was also the consideration of families and looking at options and what can we do on such a short period of time. Many districts that are larger than us have many more people that can work on things. We are very limited with it in scope with what we can do, especially with all that is going on this spring. But we're doing the best we can, and we're going to continue to do the best we can to provide a product and education for our parents that one is safe and it is something that they feel best suits their families. The other thing is that we want to make sure that people know we are providing some different options. It is just a start. We believe that it's part of our first choice vision to be able to offer many different opportunities for learning for our families and our learners in the long run. We just didn't think it would happen so quickly. We didn't have the time. And I want to make sure that everyone understands I'll have Dr. Sternerheim talk a little bit about just an overview of the options we're working on, and also a little bit of what we're looking at as far as making some changes with the calendar to help best meet the needs right now. But I want to make sure that people know we have actually when we went through this process, the intermediate unit, Roxford, which represents 25 school districts from York County, Adams County, and Franklin County. All those school districts participated in a plan that the IU put together. The Department of Ed put a plan together that was so broad it really didn't answer any questions, and it just seemed like the closer it got to the district, the more detailed it could get. The IU did a great job. There were representatives from every district. They hit about 8 or 10 major areas of concern for schools. We had a representative for each area, and what we did, we had those representatives who went to that, come back, and then they held their own groups here in the district, and that information then was shared with our administrative cabinet. Administrative cabinet, we had all that information. We used documents from all the different experts, American Pediatrics. We used documents from CDC, the Department of Ed information. We were inundated with information that we tried to review, plus keep what the board's minds and where they felt we should head. The other thing was, with all that information that we had, we took that and put together this plan, and we stole a lot from a lot of different districts. And I want to also, although our online version this year was not the greatest, and I think with my last borough blast call, and there will be another one out tomorrow, the last borough blast call, I admitted we didn't do the greatest job with it, and we knew that. We were not great at it, but we were going to get better. And what we did was bring in someone that was at one time a leader with one of the largest online programs, Cyber Schools. And we asked him, he's working with us, I asked him, can you help us build our own? He said, yes, but it won't be done. If you want to compete with those cyber schools and have a better product than they can ever offer, he said we can't have it done by the beginning of school. So that is our long-term plan, to have that in place, hopefully by sometime next fall or before Christmas. That is our long-term plan, to have that kind of an option. But we do have some options which we'll talk about. So again, we put together this plan, and a lot was considered as we went through this, and we took it very, very seriously. And some of our folks did a great job on the virtual learning. Some did better, and some didn't do as well. I do commend our district in one way, is that if you look around the county, we were the only district to do it K-12. I think Shippensburg was working on K-12. Most of them did an enrichment type of program, or they did the actual online learning just at one level, like high school. And Waynesboro was the only one to do a K-12. We just weren't very good at it yet. And that's something we knew. We were thrown into it and tried to put something together the best we could. There wasn't a lot of direction from the state, actually none. So if I'm going to be perfectly honest. So we did the best we can, and we're going to continue to do that because we want the best for our students here. And having grown up and graduating from here, I want to make sure that we do have even a better place in the future than what even I want. So, moving on, I want to highlight what's in that plan, some of the questions, and I'll try to address some of the issues that came up from folks that spoke. And I'll start by basically saying, if there is a red phase put back into Pennsylvania for Franklin County, or a yellow phase, we are going to have to probably make some changes and not be face-to-face in school. There will have to be some changes at that point. But in the green phase, we are allowed to be face-to-face and in the school, and that's where this plan is based, on that assumption, at least for now. Could change tomorrow. The governor could come out and tell us we're closing schools, but until that time, our plan is to have a full opening with options for the parents, and that would be as part of our plan, which we were very clear with a total reopening for all students and staff, but some students' families opt for distance learning out of the safety and health concern, and we're going to try to provide some various options. Also, we are putting together a pandemic coordinator team. This is our pandemic team, a response team. That team that's not the same people that were on all the other teams that we had prior to putting this plan together. Some of them are, many of them are, but not all of them. And I will tell you, we've used this plan that we have reviewed it. It was not daily, but it was on the phone with our solicitor, our lawyers, quite often through this whole process to make sure it was legal, and also discussing, they represent school districts across the state and trying to see, okay, what else is going on, what other things do we need to be concerned with. And that team will have a chance to, issues that come up will be referred to and discussed, and we'll meet on a regular basis in order to keep abreast of what's going on in the district. Key strategies and policies and procedures with this plan. We looked at cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, and ventilation. And I am going to let Dr. Sternheim and Mr. Holtzman jump in any time that there may be something I missed. But on the plan, basically, again, we're going to be cleaning, we're going to be sanitizing, the filters in the air will be changed more. The drinking fountains, we're going to move them all to bottle fountains, which instead of a child being able to drink at the fountain, they will be allowed to have water bottles, and they will be able to refill their. I think there's a thing you fit on the water fountains that we're putting on. Some of the buildings actually have them already, but we're going to do that so then kids can get water that way. So we're trying to get away from that shared water fountain, which is actually a major area of concern. And, again, the cleaning and the sanitizing and disinfecting, we have purchased some Clorox 360 machines, which are kind of dusters, they're foggers, to help. They're hard to get. We're trying to get as much as we can with the money we have. I don't know if you have anything to add, Mr. Holtzman?
Yeah, I think we already received at least one of the machines so far. They're very good for large stakes areas or areas that there is an outbreak.
So that is an area that we are working on to try to get as many as we can. We realize there are some shortages out there because there's a great demand on things. Again, other cleaning and sanitizing will happen. I mentioned the 360. We are looking at various options for the calendar to have times that we may not have students here on a regular basis, that we can do a heavier high-level cleaning during those times. We might have staff in the building, but we wouldn't have students during that time. And the good thing about that sheet fogger or whatever it is, the fogger, is that you can use that, and almost immediately people can go back into that room just about. So anyhow, again, we will be working as far as trying to clean on a regular basis and constantly throughout the process or throughout the year, and however long this will go on that we need to do that. And actually, it's good practice anyhow, so I don't see why we couldn't continue it even if there was no virus. One of the other things we wanted to discuss is classroom learning space and the 6 feet. What we're trying to do, one of the things, part of the process that you will see is that we had to pass the district-wide plan, and again, as it gets closer to the floors of the school, it gets more detailed. So after tonight, if the board passes this plan, then, and our administrators have been working on plans in their buildings, and they have a rough idea what's on here. We just didn't want to get too much false information out there, so we try to keep it limited. But they will be working and then sharing their plans for each building, because they will look different. It'll be much more detailed how they're distancing kids. We're going to do the best we can. As you know, I think a couple of people mentioned it, that, you know, in schools it's really difficult to do that, but we're going to do the best we can with that many students coming back to socially distance them. And we also put physically distance in there to try to keep kids just as far apart as we can if we can't meet the 6 feet. So just that there are just a couple of other news about this plan. And again, there will be building plans coming out. One thing that we are going to be pushing very hard is that we're going to be pushing for you know, good hygiene practices from our students, our teachers, encouraging good hand washing. I know when I was listening to a podcast of Dr. Joseph Allen from Harvard. He wrote the book called Healthy Buildings. He also is one, I believe he's on the national COVID-19 pandemic task force. Anyhow, with one of his recommendations is that, you know, maybe teachers will have to use all force sending kids back to school, but he said maybe if students take a bathroom break, to also do a hand washing break, and that helping kids understand how important that is critical. So that is something we have in our plan to do, and that would be part of our professional development this year. It's going to be basically safety and online learning. So again, and as I get into a little bit more of this, but to get a little more into the detail of how our cafeterias will the overall plan is that we will not allow students to serve themselves. We're going to be trying to do as much of the less touching, the less the better, opportunities for students and the disposable things, that things don't have to be returned. And I don't know, Mr. Holtzman, if you have more to add on to the cafeteria?
There will be opportunities in some cases for students to take items, but things like community salad bars and things like that, obviously.
Condiments will be packets. There won't be any other sharing of condiment areas. Student dining areas, each building is working on a plan of how to handle that and keep students as either fewer students in there or spreading them out to other rooms, or taking kids back to their rooms. So they are working on those plans, and we'll be releasing them soon. Again, hygiene is best practices to try to encourage that with all students and staff. We also, in the plan, we try to embed some links that people can go into of some of the documents that we use to be able to help write this plan. Posting of signs, you probably have seen some of it. Dr. Sternerheim has been working on that. We are posting signs, trying to make them very visible in locations, promoting everyday protective measures, and how to stop the spread of germs. And that's critical. And identifying and restricting non-essential visitors. That's an area that we will be doing our best to try to restrict the number of visitors that come into the building, and people will have to, as the state requires, will have to have masks. We'll be trying to limit where visitors go into the building to try to keep them from being in where the general public of the students are. We also are eliminating our volunteers and other programs that we would normally want to have part. We're trying to keep as few people coming into the buildings as we can. I don't know, Dr. Sternheim, if there's anything you can add to that.
Yeah, I believe that what you're articulating is correct. In other words, it's a work in progress, and recognizing that we need to keep our students safe. And so, although we really value volunteers at this point, we're going to begin the school year with the faculty and staff.
One of the other things that is in the plan, and we have a separate plan, the resocialization of that. Well, we have some other plans that are going to be put in place, but we did last time, I believe we approved the athletic plan to get athletics moving back into place. And that is always a risk. We know that the NFL and so far the college football, there's a lot of different things out there, but it looks like many of them are moving forward. We do have a lot of athletics going on right now with the kids and particularly at this building. And we did have a plan there to try to keep the kids as safe as possible. And that was one that was shared probably by many districts, very similar to many districts. Again, some of these are going to get into even bigger details, like phys ed. One of the things we're trying to encourage more, not just running, but other activities, that there won't be a lot of sharing of equipment, and trying to rely on our PE teachers to be as creative as possible so that kids are just not walking with social distancing and running social distancing. We're encouraging them to create as much as they can so that the student gets as much out of that class as possible. Handling of music, again, we have some COVID-19 instrument cleaning policies that we embedded in there. We have some plans that came from one of our teachers of advice on that. Again, I think what and I'll talk about masks here in a minute, but we're going to try to follow as many of the guidelines and recommendations that are out there for those areas and students in the building. And again, we can put some links there to click on. And it's pretty difficult with band and such, it's a little difficult to play an instrument with a mask on, so we certainly understand that. So there will be some variations of what's going on, what's going to be able to be required. And unfortunately, with instruments, you certainly have, with the mouth being used to play most of the instruments, that would be an issue. And we do have instruments here in most of the bands where the kids share, so that's another concern that's going to have to be looked at. Again, we want to try to limit as much of that and disinfect things and clean those things that are being used by different students at different times. Staggering communal and hallways, we're going to do the best we can with that. The principals are working on that for individual buildings. Again, we're trying to keep it fairly consistent, but because cafeterias look different, designs of buildings look different, there will be some variations. But we are trying to, particularly the elementaries, keep it as similar as possible. I want to jump to transportation. As many of you know, we voted to redistrict the elementaries and change the enrollment areas, and we continued with that because we believe it's the right thing to do, and with all the work and time that was spent, that we want to move forward with that. Having said that, we need to be considerate of any of the transportation issues that we have. Referring back to Dr. Allen, that I heard on a podcast here not long ago, he had mentioned one thing about the windows of the bus, that one of the best things we can do, and he basically said, kiddies, you got to make sure you wear heavy coats in the winter, but those windows need to be down 2 or 3 inches and that. And right now, actually, with that as a practice for some of our bus drivers, that they actually do keep the windows down some, but that is something that we know is probably going to have to happen. One of the issues with transportation, we found some districts can afford to add transportation. It is a very serious issue for us because of our budget issues over the year. One of the things that we are finding that we just could not afford to run double the runs and have twice as many buses. We just couldn't do that to be able to socially distance on those buses as we wanted. We are going to strongly encourage students to wear their masks. We have to be very careful. Again, we've been in very close contact with our solicitor on how we do things and what we can enforce, what we can't enforce because of various privacy laws and privacy reasons. So that is something we have to strongly consider. And And that will be very frustrating to a lot of us that want to try to enforce that the best we can for the safety of everyone, but we do have limitations for some of that. So anyhow, with the buses, we're going to do the best we can to keep kids separate, but we will have buses where it's going to be difficult to do that. We could not afford to put one student on a seat or even guarantee that there could only be two. We're doing the best we can. I don't know, Mr. Holtzman, if there's anything else to add to that.
Not specifically, I mean, we don't run necessarily all of our buses at all times at full capacity, especially for secondary students. Also, from a cleaning perspective, the chemicals that we use in our schools today for cleaning are going to be the same chemicals that the bus contractors use. So that way, if a student happens to be exposed to some type of a chemical that would cause a problem, it's the same chemicals we always use for cleaning buildings. They do kill COVID-19, it's been tested for that. And so the bus contractors have been provided with those chemicals as well, so they can clean those buses daily, the same way. Sure.
Again, we're looking at ways that we can limit numbers of students in classrooms. That again, with the way we're designed, it's a little difficult to do that, but we're trying to figure out where we can and where we can't. There will be places we won't be able to do that. There will be places we can physically or socially distance more appropriately. And actually, our classrooms will also be manned with disinfectant and paper towels and wipes where we can, and such that teachers will have that at their access in order to do things right on the spot or right after an activity or things like that in order to keep that cleaning going. We are working, one of the things we have to start doing, and unfortunately we do have an early childhood coordinator, and she has been in contact with some of the local child care areas, but that's something we're going to have to continue to work with them because of our calendar changes that we may have, and try to make sure we're sharing information of how kids are getting to and from school and all the other things that we have to deal with our partners in early child care in the community. I'm jump to talking a little bit about masks. As I mentioned, when we first shared this plan with the board some time ago, at least the initial overall plans, if you recall, I had tried to get some information of some basics for this plan. And one of the things that were the big question was masks. And it was decided as a board that to not require masks, but strongly encourage them. The board is still, has been in that position. However, back last week or the week before, when Governor Wolf had mandated it or made it mandatory, and also the Department of Ed finally sent something out that told us here you need to, these are going to be mandatory. Then we changed it in our plan. And even though the district was not requiring them, as long as the governor or Department of Ed is telling us we have to have kids wear masks, we will do that. And again, we are going to be very sensitive to how we handle that. It's a little different with staff than it will be with an individual owner on how we handle that. So we have to be very careful. We have to just continue to encourage kids to wear. And many of you know it's going to be very difficult at many different ages to keep those masks on. Those kids that are able to wear masks, it's going to be very difficult. But we're going to do our best to encourage it, that kids are keeping themselves safe and their loved ones at home that they may be exposed to. But masks have been a subject for some time, I think, that the board has discussed over the last month or so. So I'm going to move on just to look a little bit here, monitoring student and staff health. One of the things that we have to be very cognizant of as a district is HIPAA laws. And those HIPAA laws are the Protection Act for health information. And we have to be very, very careful how we question staff, we question students, and the demand and all that. We have to be very, very thoughtful about that. However, one of the things, you will not see it in this plan as much as you will. There will be another set of guidelines and protocols going out to the staff for how we handle them. That is a personnel issue that we have to be very careful. But there will be other things there that will be for the staff. So this is, it says staff and students, but there will be more details for the staff. But you can see at the monitoring of students and staff and for symptoms and history, what we're going to be doing is asking our parents, one, to do the best you can and to do all you can to monitor your child's health at home. We will work with you with attendance. We still have to keep attendance. The state still requires attendance, but we will work with you on that attendance. If your child is sick, we ask that you keep them at home. We're going to be putting different documents out there for parents so they know. But we're not going to force temperature taking by bus drivers or anyone else, because as the bus driver mentioned, you have a little 7-year-old who comes up to the bus at the bus stop, and some districts will look at taking their temperature before they got onto the bus. Here's a scenario that doesn't work. You have a 7-year-old coming up to the bus, they get their temperature, it's too high, the bus driver says, "Sweetheart, I can't let you on this bus, and you have to go home." And the little girl said, "But my mommy and daddy are at work, I can't, there's nobody at home." Well, that's an issue. So we know that that child's going to have to come to school. So we are not, and there are issues with the temperatures. Again, we've been through this with our solicitor on his point of view, and that whole firm and other firms, so there are issues with, there are concerns with taking temperatures. That it could be done, and maybe recommended, having a child that is in school, that there is a concern that they may be sick. Maybe they start to develop those symptoms during the day and it got worse. That child would go to the nurse, and the nurse would go from there, just like we do with any other, just any other sickness or anything else that a child would have, and how we deal with it in school. One of the other issues, and I'm kind of going through this a little bit differently than what I wanted to, but I want to make sure it's clear. One, again, with HIPAA law, so there's Health Information Protection Act law, how we divulge information is very critical. If we were to say, Hooverville has, one of the 4th grade teachers has contracted the disease, we are at risk of violating HIPAA because in that building there are only 2 teachers, and that our solicitor said, "Do not go there." He said we can make announcements that yes, we have had in the district a case by a staff member or by a student. However, and you could even go to the point where you name the building, but when you start getting down to grade levels or a particular class, that is going to be risky behavior on our part to communicate that. And that is one thing that we wanted to know in order to keep parents informed. So I want to make that clear to everybody that we have to be very careful how we communicate that, and that it will not be as detailed as what we all would like, but it is a protection act of people's rights, of a child's rights and a teacher's or an adult's right. So that, I just wanted to explain that while I was at this point, just so people knew. We will be communicating, and we're going to try to communicate things that are even changing. If the governor changes things, we're going to try to get that information out as possible. And I said to somebody, it's like the weather. If you don't like it, just stick around a day, it'll change, because that's how it's been since March 16th, actually March 13th. So, again, we'll be monitoring students. One thing we ask parents to do the temperature taking, to make sure, checking for a fever, checking for symptoms, do all of that at home, to be as responsible as possible. We know there are going to be times where there are kids who are going to come to school and they're going to be sick. They may not have that virus, but they may be sick. And we're going to be doing all we can to get that parent to come and get that child and send them home. no matter if it's just, just a cold, and that can be miserable enough, let alone having a very serious COVID-19 ailment. So, again, we will be doing this, we ask families to do the best they can to monitor kids for their health. We will be isolating kids and our staff the best we can. It's easier for staff because we can send them home right away, but when there are kids that are waiting for a parent, we want to make sure that those parents will have an opportunity to get there to pick up the kids. Unfortunately, sometimes they aren't able to come right away, so we have to have a place to isolate. So you will see each building will have a place that they will be able to isolate kids that are sick. And if that would be something the nurse would be working on, if a kid has a cold or if there's a suspicion of the child having COVID-19, there are two different illnesses, and that will be considered as far as isolation and how we have to do that. And while I'm at it, I just want to let the board know we have been in contact with WellSpan. And WellSpan is planning to come back and run our clinic at the high school. And right now they're planning some flu shot things, but they're going to be looking at how they can utilize that site more and more for our kids and our staff. So I don't know, Mr. Holtzman, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to Mrs. Truax about it, but I know that was the last conversation they had. That's right. Okay. So, all right, I'm going to move on here. Again, the returning of kids, and one of the biggest issues right now, there is a recommended quarantine of kids that would be out or think they're exposed. We ask families to self-quarantine those kids. If anyone is exposed, we're asking them to keep the kids home. We will work with them with the attendants, try to provide, just like any other time that a child is out for illness, try to provide the best we can to help them keep up with their schoolwork. But we ask that they keep them home and keep them isolated. Even if there's a suspicion they were exposed to the virus, we ask that they keep them home. We are going K to 12, we are going 1-to-1, so every child, when they come back to school, before they leave, they will be assigned a device. Now, right now, I think K to 2, they will be in school, unfortunately, right now, until they can learn how to use them. Is that correct?
The plan at this point is that they would remain in school and then be able to be taken home as necessary. We feel that, from an age and age appropriateness, that third grade, between third grade and 12th grade, they would be taking them home daily. But as we plan accordingly, if there is a situation that we would have to close for a duration of time, our K to 2 learners would be taking the devices home.
And I apologize if I don't hit it all. I'm trying to get through it as much so we can move on with this, but I wanted whoever the board is aware and our folks out here in the audience is aware of where we're going with this. And protecting students with higher risk, one of the things we do have some classes of students that are higher risk. We want to protect our staff. They'll have certain things. We're going to do all we can to try to keep kids separate because there are certain children that are more susceptible to things, and we're going to work with those departments in order to protect those kids the best we can with distancing, with masks, with gloves, with whatever safety precautions, and also just cleaning that we can with those kids because they are at more risk if they decide they want to come to school for their education. Moving on here a little bit, as quickly as I can here. I just kind of want to regroup before I go to some other things here, but I want to to make sure people understand one of our first things that we want to do the most we can is clean, sanitize, disinfect, and ventilate learning areas. The ventilation is critical, and we want to make sure we're doing that the best we can, and again, changing those filters as often as we can that is practical and that we can afford to do. And also, one of the things we're looking at is also bringing more fresh air in from outside into the systems that we can do that with. That was another recommendation that's been put out there by the, like people that do things on healthy buildings. And that's just a good practice in general. One of the things that you have not talked about a little bit, were some various options that we're looking at for parents that may choose to either send their child back to school or they may want some other option. I'm going to let Dr. Sternheim discuss that. Plus, the other thing that I asked her to discuss a little bit about, we are looking at some calendar changes here in the next week or so, bringing it back to the board. We want to be as strategic with it. With the resolution that you passed gave us some options that we can do, and we want to look at those options again to get our staff more trained on these various issues. So if we do have to go all virtual, we'll have more skill at it. And also with helping them understand any changes that come along and how to best address health issues and sanitizing and cleaning and just keeping the kids safe in the classrooms. So Dr. Sternheim, do you want to talk about those options, those three options at least that we have for now?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Klein. So in reference to the first choice learning networks, what we're essentially doing at this point is we're hoping to be able to offer three options to our students. The traditional option that we're hopeful will work out to everyone's advantage and we'll be able to reopen schools and continue to do everything as normally as possible, with the understanding that we have lots of things that we have to take care of from a safety perspective. The second option is we already have established a cyber program that's affiliated with the Waynesbury School District. It's K-8 with one particular platform, and then we also have a platform that's available at the senior high school. The new venture that I did get board approval, at least to look at the job description in a prior meeting, is that we're looking at creating a hybrid learning teacher format. What we're looking at is that, again, I am very, very proud of our teachers in terms of what we were asked to do last spring, essentially overnight. And I want to go on record that in Franklin County, we were the only district that provided planned instruction. I know it wasn't ideal, it wasn't perfect, but again, kudos to all our teachers, support staff, admin for being able to pull that off so quickly. And I believe, as effectively as anybody else in our area, if not better. But we recognize and learn from that again, it wasn't the one-to-one contact, it wasn't necessarily completely aligned with the classroom expectations. So from that experience, what we're hoping to be able to deliver, and what we've heard, and we did conduct a survey in June, and as of today, from the survey results, and at least also people that have called in, we have 43 families or students who've indicated they are looking at another option. So the principals will be following up with those individuals. Actually, a large percentage of those 43 are actually kindergarten families who are, again, first starting off school, obviously have some concerns, especially in this current situation. So what we're hoping to be able to provide, and we are under the guidance of Dr. Scott, recognizing that we're opening here within the next 5 weeks, is that we would look for teachers that are currently going to continue to teach their particular classroom. They will be recording their lessons live, and that lesson, that information whatever the student needs would then be provided to the hybrid learning environment, but it would be a day later, so that we would be able to essentially stay a day ahead of it, but we can obviously film in advance. We're looking at offering that K to 8. The high school is a little problematic at this point in light of the fact that there are so many options, but we're going to continue to explore that. A teacher who would be interested, tomorrow I will be posting the position and a job description, and they would be receiving then an additional stipend in order to take on that additional responsibility. We already have the number of students. The most amount, I believe, is we have 8 students in 8th grade. Again, I'm only basing it on what information has been shared with us. There may be more, there may be less. And also the beauty of this that we're hoping is that, let's say that we start off and there is some maybe concerns or pre-existing medical conditions that may inhibit a child from returning initially, but maybe halfway through September or October, then they could rejoin. Now the disconnect, let's say from an elementary perspective, is that it could be a first grade teacher at Summit View is delivering that instruction, but then when that student is maybe perhaps ready to return or wants to return, or the family's feeling more comfortable returning, they will not be returning to that first grade Summit View classroom. They would be returning then to wherever, like if their attendance area is Maori. So it is the ability, in some cases, to still stay connected with the Waynesbury School District, stay connected with the teachers, basically follow the same curriculum, have that live instruction, although it would be a day behind. Ultimately, you would still need to have, adult supervision. It's one of those things, that children still are going to need that assistance from home, but then that student, that parent would be able to communicate more directly with the teacher, and the interesting thing is we do have a wonderful partnership with Go Guardian. I know Mrs. Godine was just part of a meeting, and they're also developing some additional, I guess we call it bells and whistles, that may be able to enhance that particular circumstance. But we're hoping it can be a fluid type transition, and it could work both ways in the sense that, let's say you start a school year and then you have a medical emergency, your child has a medical emergency, and then they can perhaps opt to do this for a period of time. So we're in the process of developing that. I have a tremendous amount of confidence in our teachers. We're going to be seeking out those individuals that probably did that plan instruction, in terms of the big picture. They were the ones that were the go-tos for other members of our faculty and staff who needed some additional support. So we're hopeful that that is a good option for our families at this point. We recognize it may not be the best for all families, but we're hopeful. And so the next step would be posting that, hiring those individuals, giving them that time to prepare. As Dr. Klein had mentioned, it's actually on number 12. We recognize that, although we established a operational calendar, we're in the position now that we need to make and look at some adjustments. We have the ability to add Act 80 days. That will give teachers additional time if they're preparing for some remote learning opportunities. They will also give us additional time to do a lot of this COVID training. We're also looking at although we have established early dismissal days, the ability to add additional days and to change those days. And if it is one of those situations where it's halfway through the week, we do an early dismissal, and will also give us an additional opportunity to clean the building in classrooms. So those are some things that we will be working on this week, and we will be presenting that calendar. Then we have a special board meeting set up for July 20th. That's sort of it in a relatively brief explanation. So the teachers that are in the audience, look for that job posting tomorrow if you're interested, and I'd love to have the conversation. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Sternheim. And just a reminder, those are the 3 we're going in with right now. One of our things that we are trying to do is create various options in the future that we hope we have more, and that it will address some of these issues that with shutdowns, other issues that we have, that we can continue education for kids no matter what the situation, and give parents options for their kids aside from just the traditional way of school. maybe some blended approaches in the future. We're just not ready. There are some other things we're working on, we hope to be able to do. We just aren't ready now because of all that's been required of us to do over the last 2 months. There's only so much time and so many people. It's not an excuse, it's just the truth. So, anyhow, the board, that's basically the overview. I knew I wanted to hit some of the things with transportation. I wanted to hit the issues with masks, because I know some of those things. What I want to make sure that you're clear of, I don't think there was anybody that spoke up there I could disagree with anything they said. I think we all had those concerns and those issues were discussed. And if somewhere along our process, but we ended up with the final plan that we're recommending and that we've shared with you.
Dr. Klein, can I just comment on, just in case I forget at the end of the meeting, I want to recognize that in your folder, the music department did prepare a re-socialization for activities recommendation for the music department. So it's very similar to what we had passed and established for athletics. I just wanted to make sure that the board knew that it was in their folder and that we could look at that for approval at the July 20th board meeting. Thank you.
Okay, before we get into discussion, we have a motion on this, approving this health and safety plan.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, comments, questions, clarifications from anyone?
Dr. Klein, did I miss it, or did you clearly state that this is for a total reopen for all students and staff?
Yes, it's a total reopen.
Total reopen.
We are just having options for those who choose not to have total reopen.
Anticipated launch date for in-person learning, August 19th.
Yeah, August 19th. Did I have the wrong date? Yeah, it would be, the first day of school would be August 19th.
We had talked about perhaps permitting some time within the school week where we might have some extra time for cleaning and for teachers.
Yes.
Are we going to talk about that?
Yes, that's going to be part of our recommendations for the schedule change. One of the things we're looking at is taking 1 day a week that, like an early dismissal. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah, that's one of the things we're looking at, since we didn't get a chance to make those changes on the calendar and recommendations in time for tonight. That is one thing that we're looking at, that we're doing early dismissal every week that we could send out to, send the students home early and be able to do cleaning, and at the same time, during that time, start doing as much professional development on the two areas, health and safety, and also online learning and those other options for our teachers. So yes, that is what we're looking at doing to try to get out as soon as possible. We just didn't have it ready for tonight, and we do plan to have that go up front of the board here the next meeting.
I believe you have board support for that, so I think it's a good thing to get it out to the parents, to start planning for that, because
You guys are okay with that without officially saying yes? We will make sure we put that out. I would
like to discuss that a little bit more. I'm not saying against it, but I want to have time, so I want to exactly need that time for addition.
I think what we'd be looking at is Fridays are a terrible day to do it for many reasons, so we'd probably look at Wednesday afternoons most likely, and it would be just like an early dismissal. I don't know, Dr. Sternheim, I know we've done many of them, like once a quarter or once a month.
Yeah, we've already established those in our operational calendar, but those are based on assessment days, so at this point, those are up in the air. So I would like to relook at the calendar, make a recommendation, put that in the Friday folder, and then present it on Monday, July 20th, if that's accepted.
I mean, I understand there's a need for professional development, but I think that there's going to be a lot of extra things for teachers and staff that we don't even know at this point what they might be. I just think that's going to give everybody a chance midweek to kind of regroup, not to mention we can get cleaning done.
Absolutely.
what's going to happen?
Well, I just, my immediate concern is the instructional time. That's why I just like to see what the actual plan is, how many hours it's going to involve, and that kind of thing. So, again, I'm not saying against it, but I just like to.
And according to the resolution and what the state is allowing, we still, whatever we do online or virtually, or not just virtually, but remote learning, even if it isn't online, any kind of remote learning, we have to make sure that we can document those 990 hours for secondary and 900 hours for elementary. Because we are also looking at days that we're going to call remote learning days that actually we will put in the calendar that the kids would actually stay home, they would do remote learning. There won't be that many, but what we will do is we will use those for snow days. So if there is a snow day, a child, and it may not be on the snow day, it could be, it may not be. It depends how prepared we are to send those, making sure that those plans are in place for those kids. If we get snow in January, one day, then if we've already done one of those remote learning days, we don't have to make that day up, it's already done. And that would be done virtually or some way remotely that we would do it. So we're trying to work that out, but we are planning to put some of those days in that calendar. Again, we just have to make sure we're able to account for students that are participating and their attendance and such like that.
Dr. Klein, just to clarify, we will be taking a vote to approve a health and safety plan for the upcoming school year that, based upon conditions, could change at any time.
Yes.
Okay.
There are things that could change in the plan that we wouldn't necessarily have to bring back to you for approval. I've had this discussion with our solicitor. However, some major changes would have to be brought back to you to approve every time. Some districts actually put the resolution in the plan. I just felt the resolution was an important part of this board meeting to know how important, what we're actually doing. If I put it in the plan, it kind of gets hidden, and I didn't want to do that. I want to make sure it's clear that there will be some remoteness possibly coming that we will have in place and be ready for as best we can.
Thank you.
Dr. Klein, I have one more question.
Sure, Mrs.
So, yes, so I apologize for missing the earlier part of the meeting utilized foot history, but so you may have already clarified this. So I agree with everything in this plan that you said, but our staff has not been addressed well. Would that be addressed differently?
Yes, actually we have protocols that we will be getting out to them very soon. We're working on that. Those protocols, because of it is a personnel issue and staffing issue that we're trying to deal with that slightly differently. Again, we will be, one thing I did include in the plan that we will be, trying to isolate staff with concerns, because I think that is an important factor for parents to know that we will be working with staff that is sick to try to isolate them the best we can. We are going to be addressing as far as if quarantining and such, if people are away, that will also be part of where we go to address that with our staff. But that'll be one of the next things that we start to do.
Excellent, because I think that would be very important for parents to hear in the future. Yes. Thank you so much.
And I appreciate you bringing that up, because there is a lot more to their detail of how we have to handle staff. But again, that's a somewhat a different issue, but we want to make sure everybody knows that we do have plans of how we will be addressing issues with the staff.
Thank you very much, because that also helps in determining my vote for this particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay, then, just before we vote, I just personally want to say that I appreciate the options in this plan. We don't know what the future holds on this. We're making the best attempt we can to meet the needs. We might be right, we might be wrong, but it's what, if this passes, this is what we believe for our district and for our kids and staff, that this is the way to go. So I appreciate the time and effort that's been put into this. And I think it's well thought out. Again, there's more to come with the plans for each building that are going to come down the road. But I appreciate it. Okay, and saying that, if there's no more comments then, we have the motion and the second. All those in favor of approving the health and safety plan, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Okay, then the motion passes, and this is what we'll be operating on until we have to make changes, which we all know are probably coming tomorrow. Yeah, it'll be tomorrow. Okay, so thank you. All right, on to the next item, which is the parent-student handbook. Okay. That changed.
Oh, yeah.
No, we did the bond when you voted. That you were not a part of, I'm sorry, but we did that. It passed. We saved $288,000. It's our happiest thing of the day. Okay. So then, I'll go by this one I have. All right, the next item is personnel. Dr. Sternheim.
Thank you. Sarah, I'd like to direct your attention to the personnel items listed in the board docs. We have resignation of support staff, additional requests for leave. Additional resignation of professional staff, resignation of support staff, appointment of support staff, and recommendation is to approve as listed.
Okay, motion? Do a second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions for Dr. Sternheim? If not, all those in favor of approving the personnel list, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, in light of the fact that we spent, tremendous amount of time today talking about the reopening plan, that's probably going to be the major focus of our families and our students. However, on an annual basis, we do have our parent-student handbooks approved by the board. I will provide copies of each of the plans, of the handbooks, I should say, in the Friday folder. I'm asking that if you want a hard copy to make sure that you either reach out to myself or Mrs. Kuzer, and we'll make sure that you receive a hard copy sometime this week so that we could move to approve those at the July 20th meeting. And just for clarification, it appears this year we're probably going to have this as the traditional parent-student handbook, and then we're going to have a separate document that will be addressing specific, the reopening plans, and more than likely in a Q&A type format.
Okay, when did you say that was going to be ready? I'm sorry, I missed
The
that.
plan, all the I have the copies of the handbook.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying that I will provide the electronic copy. I know there are board members that would prefer to have the hard copy, so I just need to know in advance.
Okay.
I would just like to know changes.
Okay.
I mean, is it possible to just like highlight or do something just?
I can follow with my elementary principal. I know we were mandated to add some additional information regarding homeless, but in terms of specific changes, I can work on that.
Or just changes that we need to know about.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise, it's pretty much the same thing.
Basically, yeah. I'm not off the top of my head. I'm not recalling any real specific changes, but I can work on that.
Okay.
I would like digital copies are fine.
Okay.
Yeah, digital's fine.
So I guess everyone will receive the digital copies. What I will try to do then is in the Friday folder, I will highlight perhaps in red what is different.
Yeah, and I don't need to make a lot of work for it, just in general. You know what I mean? Like anything that might stick out, that might be something that might come up, like any big things to like dance guidelines or anything that we may need to know about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Next item is graduation.
Okay, just an update. To date, we have 218 students who have indicated in a survey that they plan on attending the graduation that is scheduled for July 28th. So at this point, we are moving forward. The board should have received their invitations in the blue folder. And at this point, Mr. Pappas and high school admin will be following up with students and parents, and we will be providing 2 tickets per student to attend the graduation scheduled for July 28th at 6:30.
Okay, thank you. ESS contract.
Okay, I'll go ahead if you want to jump in anywhere you can. The ESS contract is the contract we use with our substitute service system, our program. Over the last few years, or I don't remember, I think it's a 4 or 5 year contract. We ran into some issues and concerns. As a county, most of the districts in the county work with ESS, and we had gone to them to make some changes, to ask for certain things out of that. We've given them a 1 year, asking for a 1 year contract, so we can see if ESS follows through with some of those changes. And so far they've been trying to, it's just they haven't had much chance to do that with the closure of school on March 16th. So anyhow, it is a 1 year, basically a 1 year extension, and we'll be determining and evaluating how that program will go. And there aren't a lot of substitutes out there, so we don't blame them for that, but how it's handled, when we get new substitutes, they are responsible for it. We're hoping that will improve over the next year.
Motion on this one?
So moved.
Second.
Questions for Dr. Klein? Nobody?
I think you said this, Dr. Klein.
Huh?
Yeah, but I'm an ESS employee even now, and I work for ESS in fall. And I don't have anything good to say about it, but, you know, I realize our school board right now is a dilemma and probably needs to give them a break. My question is, or actually my concern is that this next year is going to be even more problematic. And guess what? It was problematic in the fall when I was substitute. So if it's even more problematic, are we going to be able to bring any out of substitutes in, or do we have to bring theirs in?
The way it is once we have a contract with them, we do have some things that we can do, but we're limited to their substitutes as far as our regular day-to-day substitutes that we put in there. I don't know if you want to explain our building sub approach, but you know, if you want to explain, that's a different.
So I have not had conversations with ESS. I was waiting till the contract was signed, and so you know, we recognize there were some concerns, and I know Mrs. Zimmerman and I have talked about those. It is a year contract. We will be in close communication with them. We already have some needs that we have to fulfill from a substitute perspective. In light of the fact that, you know, we had furloughs this year, as well as other school districts, there may actually be more substitutes available at this point, or perhaps other individuals seeking to get into the education field that were not picked up as a district at this point. So, you know, we will continue to work with them, but at this point, you know, my recommendation would be to continue with ESS, and look, all the superintendents in Franklin County, I think, are continuing in that route, but you know, we can definitely continue to meet with them on a monthly basis if there's any issues or concerns.
Okay, I have one question, Dr. Sternheim.
Yes.
I jumped through lots of hoops in order to be able to sign on with ESS in order to sub in the district. And this is a district where I've taught for many years, and, you know, it's different. So is ESS, all those people who have been furloughed, is ESS going to make it a bit easier for them to actually jump through the hoops and get certified to be able to go. That's my resume, okay? And if you can't say yes, I'm going to vote against it. But they need to do that in order to keep us employed, okay? I'm sorry.
That's okay. What we'll share with you is that most likely all of our furloughed teachers will be employed with the district the coming year, and they will likely, unless they choose to, won't likely have to go through ESS. One of the issues that we face with ESS, because every district in the county has a contract with them, and why we have to unite as a group of superintendents and districts in order to make a change in this, is if you decide to leave this particular service, that means all the other districts are probably going to have, because ESS has all the substitutes in the county right now. So we would struggle to find people to sub, because all the other districts all the other subs are falling under the contract of ESS. So that's why we're trying to work together to try to make those improvements. And if they don't, we're all going to then move on to another option from that point. We're kind of in a predicament the way it is set up right now. So fortunately, a lot of new superintendents in the county, and everybody is kind of on board with making sure we get a better service.
Okay, and so you can assure me that our people who are furloughed are going to be able to, easily go through the ESS process.
Well, I think the issue is that what we're trying to do right now, so what I can assure you is that we're trying to do all we can right now to bring each one of those teachers actually back to the district to work. That they don't have to substitute, that they could, unless they choose to do it themselves. But we're trying to make sure that they have employment with us.
Excellent. But one other question. How about all neighboring districts where teachers have been furloughed? Is ESS going to create problems for them getting,
That is,
come back in the classroom?
that was one of the issues when we met with all their company leaders. They sent everybody to us and met with all of us, because they know they have a lot of money here in Franklin County, because all the districts are with the company. They sent all their major leaders of their CEO and everyone to meet with us, and that was one of the things they assured us. But again, that's why we went with a one-year contract, because if they don't make some of those improvements, then we'll move on to another option.
Thank you very much. I think I'm going to still vote against it. My guess is all my colleagues are going to vote for it, and hopefully we are in line next year, okay? Hopefully the improves.
We hope that. If not, we've got to find another service.
I know. So I'm going through all of my hoops that I've had to jump through. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
It wasn't.
Okay, so we've had a motion and second. All those in favor of accepting the ESS contract, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Okay. So the majority has that, and that's approved. On to the next item, which is the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Harrison. I just want to direct your attention to a copy of the comprehensive plan. I've shared this, I believe, on 2 different occasions. It is up for formal approval this evening. It is a collaborative effort over the course of the last year with many individuals involved, including a number of school board members. It was based on information from assessment and data from last school year. And so that's where we built the plan. I recognize with the situation that we're in, we may have to make adjustments, but it can continue to be a fluid document. So the recommendation is to approve the comprehensive plan.
Motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions, comments? All right, If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item. Laurel Life contract.
Okay, the Laurel Life Affinity contract, that contract is in the MOU. We appreciate the work that and the partnership that the WAA has done with us over the last couple of years to provide this service to our schools. Laurel Life is providing this service at our elementaries for the Inspired Classroom and also the Inspired Classroom at the middle school. We saw significant behavioral improvements this past year due to those classes. And the partnership with WAA, our Teachers Association, and their memorandum of understanding that they have kind of given us a tentative green light to be approved. We really appreciate that because we believe it has been an extremely effective program, and we have data to show that, particularly in certain schools. And we appreciate that Ford gave us the chance, and this is just a continuation of that MOU and that contract for next year.
Motion?
Move to approve.
Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, next item is another MOU concerning AI/ISS.
Okay, this memorandum of understanding is again with WAA, and we appreciate them working with us on this. This is to help that we have someone that is not more in the past. Teachers have covered ISS and alternative in-school suspension and alternative instruction. And what we asked for last year is if we could have, in order to have one person covering and try to, prevent from spending a lot of money and doing other things with teachers, we had asked if they would do an MOU with the alternative instruction class and also the in-school suspension. There was a part in that MOU which, they're aware of, and I'm aware of, that, the MOU could not go through if there are any teachers furloughed. So the fact that we are trying this year to make sure that all of our teachers are not furloughed is a good thing that helps provide this agreement. So we appreciate their partnership.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Payment for complete bus lines. Mr. Holtzberg.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. This contract mirrors the contract with Beck Myers. Essentially, what it is designed to do is part back 2020 is to ensure that we have bus companies and transportation companies that are fiscally viable ready to go for the next school year. So what this does is ensures that we still receive our percentage reimbursement. It's not a full reimbursement, but our percentage reimbursement from the state, and to make sure that they still have drivers and buses available for the next school year.
Motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. On to calendar changes.
So I believe at this point we somewhat have discussed it. Dr. Khan and I will come to the July 20th meeting. We'll actually include the Friday go over some recommendations for Act 80 days in order to provide additional professional development for our staff, which also includes a lot of the COVID-19 requirements or guidelines or protocols that we're implementing for staff across the board. And then we're also looking at the addition of early dismissal days for professional development as well as to continue to keep our buildings clean. Now, I do want to add, I believe, Dr. Klein, if this is appropriate, that what we might initially do is add the early dismissal dates in the beginning of the school year, but not necessarily consistent across the year. We may have to come back and revisit that. In other words, I think we should look at it maybe like the first 2 or 3 months of school and then progress as necessary.
Good idea. Okay, so that's just informational. On to K-12 systems, which is Sapphire contract.
Very excited. Wants to discuss that at all, but this is our system, our student, they call it the student information system, Sapphire, and it's a contract for the 2020-21 school year. Anybody else has anything else?
Consolidation of our current contract.
Consolidation of the contract?
Yes, currently we actually have 3 contracts. We have our master contract, and then we have a Schoology integration contract, and then we have our Borough Glass contract. And this is just the consolidation of taking those 3 contracts into one from our last year of the master contract.
Okay.
Same price.
Okay. Motion on this, for approval?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is surplus equipment trade-in.
Yes, we do have some surplus devices that we are looking to remove from services in the district. I included 3
Can you speak up a little bit, please, Mr.
Can you hear me
Harrison?
now?
There we go.
How's that?
Good.
We received 3 quotes from 3 different vendors to sell back their surplus equipment, and the highest one was approximate trade-in value of $17,000 from Plan IT ROI. So a motion to approve, I'd like the board to approve us to be able to sell the equipment to Plan IT ROI.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now we're ready for financial business. Mr. Holtzman.
Yes, ma'am. I can talk to each one of them if you want, or one at a time, your preference.
Well, you can, unless there's some surprises in there.
No.
We should together.
Okay, thank you very much. We have normal bills, payable, and purchase orders. Our apologies again, we're transitioning to the new version of our financial software, so you're seeing 3 different sets of purchase orders. That's just because we're trying to work through some kinks in that. Eventually we'll get that down to 1. You're still seeing some bills that are being paid from last year. That's why you still see some 1920 items. That's relatively normal as well. Under the occupation tax exonerations, again, normal. We received that information from Jim Harris or internally through our tax collectors as well, with updates on tax exonerations. And the last one is property assessment change. There's 2 items there. One was the removal of a trailer off of the property. And the other one is actually a house that was demolished. You notice the work over by Camp Auto Sales across from Sheets. That was a house that was over there that was demolished as they were expanding that pad inside of there. And I think there's going to be another one you're going to see here probably in another month or so, because that also is not there at this point. So.
Okay, any questions? We'll take these all together, if that's okay. So if anybody has any questions on any purchase orders or anything? Okay, then we have a motion to accept all 3 of these financial items.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Hinton. Second by Mrs. Straight. Thank you. No other questions then? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. On to Clayton Cabinet comments.
The only thing I want to say is I want to thank everyone that was part of the plan trying to put something together. It is not an easy process. It's going to keep changing. We're going to try to update. Again, we never know what's going to happen from day to day and what direction we're going to get from the state or anyone else. So I appreciate the board working with us and being patient. This is a work in process. I know parents and everyone will be patient with us as we move forward. We're trying to do the best that we can for our kids here. I understand.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Holtzman?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Sullivan could not be here with us this evening. If you remember in a previous board meeting or two, she asked about some questions about the outstanding debt for the school lunches. I remember some of those conversations, and we were provide that information. And basically kind of do a little bit of a community request. Well, amazingly, at this point, we've received $12,900 to pay off bad debt for this school year. It's about $1,000 shy of what's left on the books for this last school year. So I think that's just been a phenomenal community event. Local individuals, organizations, churches have all committed and made payments here this year, so we're very thankful for that. Also, if you remember, there was also a discussion about soliciting funds, community donations for a wheelchair accessible van. So far, this is to take students over to the Life Skills House. So far, we've received donations of $3,210. So, anyway, very good news. And obviously, you know, we did make some earlier comments about the streaming earlier. I think that has had some positive effects on people hearing these messages and been able to provide information and help us out.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Not completely. How about the board? Board comments?
Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this meeting. Thanks so much to Nick. Okay. Take care.
Of course. Okay, anybody else? All right, if not, public comment. Let's have a follow-up. Would anyone like to speak before we get ready to adjourn?
Hi, my name is Jessie Harmon. I live at 8288 Bates Court. I just would like I know you said there's going to be different postings or whatever for different schools, and I kind of would like a little more information between the different schools so we can decide whether we want to send our kids to school or do the virtual or charter schools or whatever we want to decide. How soon will we know that type of information?
Sure. So this evening, we passed the district plan. So our building principals are working on their building-specific plans. The idea was this week they would be rolling out that information to their teacher support staff for feedback, and then by next week, the individualized school plans that will have more details, like what maybe like recess is going to look like, or what the cafeteria is going to look like, or classroom configurations, things of that nature, with the understanding that everything's evolving. That would be like a building specific, and then what my hope would be is to set up like a generic email to provide some additional feedback or comments regarding that particular school plan. All the same guidelines are used here, but it's more building specific, in terms of maybe like, what's dismissal going to look like, what time are they coming in, things of that nature.
Okay. And that's not just elementary, that would be middle school.
Elementary, middle school, and high school.
Okay.
So I met with all the building principals as well as Dr. Klein, myself, and Mr. Holtzman. So we've been discussing alternative schedules, things are, so everything's a work in progress, but it's really important that we pass this particular plan, then meet with our teachers to get feedback from them, and then share it out with our families and learners. So we believe that for the most part, we've captured most of the concerns and addressed them to the very best of our ability as a result of a faculty and staff survey I conducted earlier this school year. Plus, we've been getting information from families, like basically throughout the course of the entire summer. It's not going to make everyone happy across the board, but it will give you perhaps an idea of what a typical day will look like until something else changes. So, we're hoping for the very best. So, the week of July 20th, there should be opportunities for families to see that.
Right. And would that be on a school board meeting, or would that be just like sent out?
That would probably be available on their individual sites, school like individually, the Fairview Avenue site, and, yeah.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up on that. Is that...
Could you do your name and...
Sorry, it's Paige Stewart, 11810 Orchard Lane. You mentioned about like the day after option, like virtual.
We're calling hybrid learning.
Hybrid learning, okay. Will that be like a Zoom? Will that be actual instruction with the teacher? Or is that just gonna be like the day after they send us their notes and videos or whatever they used?
The way we're envisioning it is that the teacher would go to the lesson, you will see the teacher would provide that instruction, and then that would be shared with the hybrid learning, in the hybrid learning environment the following day.
So it's just a video of them teaching? So there's not interaction, it's just a video of them?
There's not direct interaction in that particular video. However, with the caseload, like there is an opportunity then to, if necessary, you know, if there needs additional instruction or feedback, those arrangements would be made.
Okay. And then in the plan, to go back, like the extracurricular, like art and PE and stuff, it said like there's going to be enough supplies for all students to not intermix, or, you know, the balls, you know, the playground equipment will not be used or either sanitized depending on what color phase we're in and stuff. I find that, I mean, I know art supplies are already very limited, so I guess my question is, are they still going to be doing the same activities that they've done in the past, or will it be like, here's your box of crayons, let's color? Or are they actually going to have like traditional PE where they go out and play freeze tag? Or what, you know, I'm just kind of wondering, are they going to still, or is it still going to be like stay 6 feet apart? And, you know, because I mean, I'm just wondering if anyone knows the answer to that.
I don't think I necessarily know exactly, but I have a tremendous amount of confidence in our teachers, and they recognize that they are now being asked to teach in a very different environment.
Right.
And they want to make sure our students are engaged, so we're going to have to continue to be creative. I can't tell you that it's going to be the exact same art project, but like, you know, I'd like to offer something more than just coloring. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I didn't mean that rude. That sounded really, I didn't mean it rude. I was just kind of wondering why.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where we're talking about adding these additional PD days is prior to the school year is like, you know, can we get a department together and try to be as creative as possible and look at options. You know, and yes, a lot of the, we were just discussing on the elementary level, like what activities may be deemed appropriate or not appropriate. I don't think we can play tag anymore.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but that is tactile, you know, and then, you know, we have to transition what playground areas and being able to sanitize those areas, at least making sure students are definitely washing their hands. And we had the discussion, you know, can 2 people play Frisbee? And then, you know, it's only 2, but it's 3 too many. And, you know, so there's a lot of things that we're working through. And the interesting thing is, if I'm out and about in the community, there's a lot of physical activity going on.
Oh, yeah.
There's lots of kids.
There is, yeah, it's crazy.
We are going to hold ourselves to the standards that have been set by PDE, but as I'm driving around the community, there's a whole lot going on right now.
Yeah.
So
I know, and I do not envy your position. Like, I came here tonight, I don't know where I stand. I don't know what's right, so I am not for or against. I just came to hear my options and try to make the best decision that I can. So I do appreciate the work that you've done and figuring out where I go from here.
And I will tell you, this board made very clear to us, and I mentioned it earlier, that they do not want, or even like a phys ed class, for the kids just to walk or run.
Right.
And I think my message was is that we want to try to avoid that with everything if we can. I know we're not going to be perfect at it, we're going to have issues, and there are going to be limitations, but we're going to be strongly encouraging our departments and our teachers to be very creative and it will look different.
Yeah, I expect it to look different. Just trying to get a full picture so I can make the best decision that I can. Obviously, I want my children to have personal instruction. I think that's way better than virtual, no matter how well the virtual program is ran. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm just trying to get all the information, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessica Weller. I live at 11991 Mincer Gap Road. And, I was a paraeducator for the district. I am now a cafeteria worker at the middle school, and I just ask that Mr. D'Angelo, Mr. Taylor, take into consideration the volume of children that get passed through that small area. At least at the middle school, there are 2 main lines. There is the pizza line, salad bar. There are 3 merchandisers where the kids can grab prepackaged sandwiches, miscellaneous items, water, canned sodas, whatever's available that day. But also the quick bite area where there's individually packed hamburgers, french fries. The amount of students that touch things, put them back, goof off, everything in those cases is handled. So I'm just asking that that be taken into great consideration. I know you said about having individual ketchup packets, condiment packages. Again, will they be distributed by us so that way we're not allowing them to continually handle whatever container they may be put in? If that is the case, is that whole container going to be pitched then at the end of the day because of how many hands have been in it? Just things to please consider on our part to help us do our job more efficiently and to keep everybody going through that line healthy and safe as well.
And I will tell you, I think maybe Mr. Holtzman can address it a little bit, but I know they work very closely with Mrs. Hellman on many of those issues.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good statement there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Weeks, 160 South Church. I know this isn't a huge concern, but we've had other parents ask about what the PTOs look like on the elementary level. I'm no longer a part of it, but they want to know that it's a massive fundraising thing, which also provides those supplies to the art rooms, the gym, and every other subject those kids are in. So it has a massive fundraiser that provides a lot of stuff. While we are fully understanding that is not going to be the current level of fundraising, the parents do want to know what that looks like for them. What are they doing about that? Where are those funds coming from? While we might not have field trips, if they're happening the year after, those funds won't be in the bank to cover those transportation bills. So that's something to think about if you are eliminating some of those issues, that next year we will have a transportation bill that will not be covered by PTO because they could not fundraise the year before. And then letting those parents know in elementary level also what that looks like, those volunteering opportunities, while they can't be in the building, how can they still be involved? Because we don't want to lose that disconnect from the parent and child at that moment. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Super quickly, I don't know if it's your thought to perhaps have a date for parents to let you guys know or let their school know, their whole school, or whether they're going to be remote learning or whatever. That way, there could be more planning done, because if you have, I don't know, 30% say they're going to pull their kids and not even come, that's 30% less capacity they're going to be in school. So.
I'm sure we'll have a day over there.
So, we've already conducted the one survey, but again, it was in June. So after we're able to roll out some additional details, after people have the opportunity to look at some of the school plans, ask some questions, after we continue to evaluate what happens each and every day, Dr. Klein and I have talked about conducting another survey, to see, to gauge, where people are in terms of their return. So, and again, we recognize they can come off, we can have 90% come back on the first day, and that may change, in light of, whatever circumstances that they're dealing with, by the second or third week. So I think it's fluid is probably the best word to describe it.
I actually used that term, just type it on Facebook. People were asking what the thing, and I'm like, it's going to be a fluid plan. You got to roll with it. But I appreciate the time and effort spent to come up with this plan. I think it is wonderful that there are options for parents. I think, yeah. Anyway, thank you.
I just want to make it real clear, we're actually, this is part of our overall vision for the district to offer as many options in the future. It's just, we were forced to move now, and they may not be exactly where we want to be, but we're trying to do it to meet the needs that we have right now.
And just FYI, my office is right next to Waynesburg Daycare. They are not social distancing over there at all. The kids are out on the playground playing together, playing tag, playing on all the little riding things. So, yeah, I don't think you have to worry about recess.
Okay, anybody else? If not, we are going to go to executive session, and also a reminder that the next meeting is actually going to be at 6 o'clock on July 20th. It'll be a very short meeting, just to simply approve a couple things that we have to have done. That will be at Clayton, 6 o'clock on the 20th. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, one second, that, Mrs. Wakefield, straight picture there. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?